Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and today's podcast is really just going to be me ranking the Halloween films. I want to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible. There are actually going to be three omissions from this list. Those being the two Rob Zombie directed Halloween films and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, released in '82, which I'm actually going to go out and just say this. I do actually like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. But it's just so vastly different to every other film in the franchise. Obviously, when that came out, people were like, where the hell's Michael Myers? It's just a completely different film. But I actually think it's quite a good film in its own right. A little underrated, actually, I think, but it is one of them films that has actually amassed a bit of a cult following. It does certainly have a fan base. I just think that it took a lot of people by surprise, and it really shouldn't have been marketed as Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. It should have just simply been called maybe Season of the Witch, or just given a different title. It's a film that was actually an attempt in trying to. It was the first film in what was planned to be a series of anthology horror films each year. So it was kind of a new, fresh take. But it's one that obviously didn't go down well with people at the time, but it has actually amassed a bit of a cult following. I actually quite like it. So I'm just going to be concentrating on the other 9 films in the franchise. Of course, we're getting Halloween Kills later this year in October, which I'm very much excited for. So these are just going to be my rankings. I'm just going to kind of just talk about what I like about the films, what I don't like, etc. So at the bottom of the list here, now I think already this is probably going to be controversial with some people. Okay, bottom for me, bottom of the barrel is Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, the 6th movie, released in '95. I really don't like it. To me, it's just a convoluted mess of a film. Now, admittedly, there are 2 versions of this film, 2 quite different versions. I'm actually talking about the theatrical version. I'm actually ashamed to admit I haven't seen the director's cut, which is apparently a superior version of the film, which I am yet to see. But the theatrical cut, it's just an absolute mess. I just don't really feel like this film really has that much going for it. I think it's clear at this point that Michael Myers is very much a Jason Voorhees-esque character. Obviously he's more brutal, etc. What I really don't like about this film, the biggest flaw to me, hands down, is the introduction of the druid priest. The fact that the whole fawn cult, that Michael Myers has essentially been summoned, an evil spirit, and I'm like, what the hell? Honestly, what made the original Halloween work so well for me was that air of mystique to it. Nobody knows why 6-year-old Michael Myers stabbed his sister to death on Halloween night. There's an air of mystery to it. I'm a big fan of less is more. The less you know, the scarier it is. And this film just butchers all that. There might be a couple of, there's a couple of pretty cool kill scenes, death scenes, particularly an electrocution scene that it could have happened to a nicer person. There's a real dick in this film that gets electrocuted. That was a highlight in that. But the movie as a cohesive whole, the worst film in the franchise for me. It's always good to see Donald Pleasance. Obviously, as the franchise went on, Donald Pleasance, it got to the point where he's so off the wall that, Dr. Sam Loomis is as scary as Michael Myers, if not scarier. He's more of a threat than what Myers is. Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers is a film that, I'm probably never going to return to again. It's notable for starring Paul Rudd, really, before he became a big star. I think his acting has improved quite a lot since then. So the next film on the list, again, this might cause some controversy. But it's Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, released in '89. Again, this it's just one of them films I really don't care for. I absolutely hate the mask in this movie. I mean, it's cosmetic, it's cosmetic, of course. Good mask, bad mask doesn't really make or break a movie. But the mask is awful in this. It's very kind of alien-esque. It's horrible. Halloween, it's pretty much kind of a run-of-the-mill slasher flick. I don't really feel like this film really has that much going for it. In a way, I kind of like the gothic atmosphere towards the end in the Myers house, but have you noticed how many times the Myers house has actually changed? 1 minute it's a small normal house, and it's a frigging gothic mansion and all that. And to me, this just has one of the worst scenes in the entire franchise, seeing Michael Myers cry as he removes his mask. What the hell? Seriously? I mean, yeah, seeing Myers cry. He's supposed to be this cold, calculating killing machine, and we get a tear in his eye with Jamie Lloyd's character, obviously his niece, not Jamie Lloyd, Daniel Harris's character, Jamie Lloyd. Awful moment. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really about this film that really stands out. I mean, it's just kind of a bare bones slasher flick. To have Rachel killed off quite early on in the film, I like films that take risks. I like films that are willing to throw a gut punch and stuff, but I didn't really feel anything, which is a shame, really, because Rachel, even though I'll get onto this film further on in the list. Halloween 4, not really a big fan either. But Rachel was kind of, one of the standout characters for me in that film. And I get what they were trying to do, elicit some emotion with a fifth film by having her killed off quite early on in the movie, via a pair of scissors, but I just didn't really feel anything. And then obviously the new girl, her character name is actually escaping me at the moment. She kind of takes over. She's essentially the replacement for Rachel, and she's just annoying. There's just not really anything likable about her. And I think Halloween 5, I think by this point in the franchise, it was clear that this franchise was really going downhill. The fact of the opening as well, of Myers being taken in by the old man, being kept there and reawakened and all that, and just, yeah. So, right, the next film on the list, I think for a lot of people, this might be regarded as the worst. It's by no means good. But it's one that I don't hate enough to put at the bottom, but it isn't good. I mean, it's very much a run-of-the-mill slasher flick that really, by rights, shouldn't exist. And that's Halloween Resurrection, released in 2002. The film shouldn't exist for the simple fact of what Halloween H2O did, which I thought Halloween H2O actually had a great, very satisfactory ending to the franchise. Seeing Michael Myers decapitated. How the hell is he going to come back from that? What do? We make out it wasn't Michael Myers. Myers had crushed paramedic's larynx, stuck him in his coveralls and his mask, and we're led to believe that was Myers at the end of Halloween H2O. That was a paramedic. Even though all he could have done was take the mask off. You explain how a normal paramedic goes flying out of a windscreen and then just sits back up like nothing's happened. Yeah, okay. So they just basically give us, excuse my language, the biggest bullshit excuse for Resurrection existing. What can you really say about Resurrection? It was Laurie Strode's send-off, which, again, I'm always, kind of willing to see. I like it when, risks are taken, gut punches happen, etc. But it was just unremarkable. It's just, she's in the film in the opening. There's just nothing about it that's... Yeah, for what should be a big moment that's there to elicit emotion, there's just nothing. There's just nothing in that scene. It's basically, I get what they were trying to do with Resurrection. They were trying to do a new thing with the whole slasher. Slasher movies had obviously made a big comeback with Scream, which essentially kind of revived the whole slasher genre from the 90s. And then they put this whole kind of like, we're living in that age now of technology, and obviously with the whole... the webcam, the web show that they're actually recording in the house. So I get that they were trying to do something, a little different in that. So I kind of commend them for that. But it's just a run-of-the-mill slasher flick. I mean, it's just Busta Rhymes in there. I mean, I mean, the scene that makes me cringe is where he's telling Myers to like go away. You know, he doesn't realise that is Myers, but he's telling him, and Myers just walks away. I'm like, why is he just not killing him? The fact that Buster Rhymes, just the inclusion of him in this film. To be honest, Resurrection though is really no worse than a lot of the slasher flicks that we got out during the golden age. In all fairness, it's the characters in this film are there to be killed, one by one, simple as that. I actually didn't mind the mask in this. I know some people don't. I actually did quite like the Myers mask in this film, in all fairness. I thought Brad Laurie did a perfectly fine job. I mean, he's a more kind of zombified Michael Myers, and that's certainly. I think it has some, to me personally, I think it has some kills that prove to be quite memorable, kind of over the top kills and that, the decapitation, the head rolling down the stairs, and, the stabbing through the mirror, etc. But yeah, Resurrection, it's just a pretty forgettable slasher flick that, as I said, by rights really shouldn't exist. It's ironic, really, because this was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who's directed one of the worst films in the franchise, but also one of the best as well. But I'll be coming to that shortly. So yeah, Halloween Resurrection, third from the bottom, in my opinion. There's just nothing really about it that really kind of like stands out. It's clearly a slasher flick for a more kind of modern mainstream audience. That's certainly what they were going for. But yeah, I think its original title was actually to be Halloween Homecoming, which I actually quite like that title, actually. But that title actually got ditched for Resurrection instead. So the next movie is Halloween 4, released in '88. Now, this was actually the first Halloween film I ever saw. I actually saw this before Halloween and Halloween 2. Halloween 4, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. Once again, I hate the mask. I really don't like the mask in this movie. I feel like it does actually attempt in trying to capture the essence of the original movie to some capacity. As always, it's great to see Donald Pleasance, Dr. Sam Loomis's character, who of course just gets more batshit crazy as the franchise goes on. Danielle Harris's character, Jamie Lloyd. Now, some people hate her, some people... I didn't mind her, to be honest. In this film, obviously, we get the new protagonist, if you will, in Jamie Lloyd. Obviously, the daughter of Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie Strode. To be honest, I thought she was an okay inclusion to this franchise. I know that's probably going to that's caused some controversy among some people and so forth, but they were clearly going in, a new direction here. But with Halloween 4, it's, again, Myers has become Jason. Obviously, with, the arrival of such franchises as Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, and there was quite a gap between Halloween 2, released in '81, and Halloween 4 in '88, and I feel like Michael Myers was really put there on kind of the slasher craze train. George Wilbur playing Michael Myers. You can clearly tell. He also played him in Halloween 6, by the way. Halloween 6, he was actually Michael Myers in that as well, but you can clearly tell he's actually wearing shoulder pads in this film. It's really noticeable in certain scenes as well. And I think there's actually one moment in the film where he's wearing a different mask entirely. They didn't have the mask on set, and they used a different mask with blonde hair. Literally for one scene, it's a kind of blink and you'll miss it moment, but it's quite noticeable. So I think Halloween 4, it's, again, you can't really come close to the original movie and whatever, but as kind of 80s slasher films go, it's so-so. I kind of like the idea. Again, it has a couple of death scenes that I think are quite memorable. There's one death in particular involving a shotgun. I'm sure people know what scene I'm talking about. I kind of like the fact that towards the end of the movie, the film kind of goes into a lockdown. They obviously lock themselves in the house. There's a, kind of a sense of claustrophobia and that to it. But I suppose, I kind of like the film that Myers does essentially become like the Terminator and Jason Voorhees and that, but there is an essence of kind of stalking to it as well. And I actually quite liked the bandaged face that Myers has that we see him in early on in the movie. But I really didn't like the mask. I really did not care for the mask in this film. But yeah, it's kind of like middle of the road stuff, I think, in regards to the Halloween films. Yeah, the next film for me would actually be Halloween H20, released in '98, which I actually thought was the best Halloween film in some time. Clearly, it exists because of Scream. You know, the big success of Scream, reviving the slasher genre. If it weren't for Scream, we probably wouldn't have Halloween H20. Jamie Lee Curtis, I believe, actually approached John Carpenter. I think he was actually asked to direct them. You know, let's do another Halloween film. Look, slasher films have made a big comeback. Let's do it. And it's very much in the mould of a teen Scream slasher flick. It's very much in the mould of Scream. But what I like about Halloween H2O, I like the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis is shown. I like what they do with the character, and that she's an alcoholic. She's gone into hiding, which you would. You know, your brother's been trying to kill you. You know, you've gone into hiding. You take over a new identity, and you'd probably be a drug addict or alcoholic or whatever. So I actually like the evolution of the character they did in this. And obviously, she's got a son played by Josh Hartnett in what I believe was actually his first movie. LL Cool J's in there, nowhere near as unlikable as Busta Rhymes. Yeah, I didn't actually hate. I mean, it's kind of weird. Halloween H2O coming out, then Resurrection 4 years later, and we're getting like 2 rap stars in Halloween films. But yeah, Halloween H2O, I liked. There's a level of restraint to it, like the original Halloween film. Michael Myers actually spends most of the film stalking. There's actually very little in the way of a body count in this movie, and there's not really that much in the way of blood, in all fairness. You know, it has some memorable death scenes. One of which involving a scene that's very much, I feel, a homage to a death scene from Halloween 2 in '81, and also a death scene involving a girl, you know, trying to escape in the I forgot what they're actually called now. The little I can't think what they're called. The lifts in the house, but she's killed quite brutally. So, yeah, I think with Halloween H2O, it did a good job with the character of Laurie Strode and the ultimate kind of showdown between the two. It really kind of plays on the whole, you can't kill Myers, you know, attack after attack, he just keeps getting up. With a really satisfactory ending as well, with Myers being decapitated. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great little ending. You know, Janet Leigh's in there, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother herself. Great to see mother and daughter on screen together. You know, and getting to see the car from Psycho, the original car that she actually drove from Psycho, and actually hearing for a few seconds the Psycho music on the soundtrack there as well. That was a nice little touch. So, you know, Halloween H2O, I feel like it's one of them films that it was trying to appeal to a new generation but appease fans of the original movie as well. And overall, I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed it. Yes, maybe it's not a true Halloween film because it is kind of very kind of teenified, if you will, and, you know, following in the footsteps of the likes of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and that. I believe Kevin Williamson was actually a screenwriter, and it was actually directed by Steve Miner, that actually directed Friday the 13th Parts 2 and 3. So yeah, he's a guy that's worked on both Halloween, on you know, the Halloween franchise and the Friday the 13th franchise. But no, I thought Halloween H2O was actually I thought it was quite good. There was as I said, a level of restraint there. I kind of like that aspect of Myers, actually. I don't need a high body count with a Halloween movie. I like the fact that Myers, to me, that's one of the reasons Myers stands out from Jason. He actually spends more time stalking. Certainly in the earlier films, anyway. So, yeah. Now, the next film is Halloween 2018, which I actually thought was the best Halloween film in a long time. This is a film that I was really excited for. Obviously, it's a Blumhouse film, the highest grossing slasher movie of all time now, I believe. And this is a film. What Halloween H2O did, quickly getting back to that, Halloween H2O actually, H20, actually omitted the sequels aside from Halloween 2. So, obviously Halloween 3, 4, 5, 6 do not exist. Halloween 2018, what that does, that actually ignores H20. That actually ignores all sequels. And this is actually a continuation 40 years after the 1978 original. But at the same time, it does certainly make little nods. For the Halloween fans out there, it does make references. It does make kind of wry little nods to two sequels that don't technically actually exist within this film. So, it's definitely for Halloween fans. I mean, it's certainly Halloween 2018 plays a lot of nostalgia. It plays quite heavily on nostalgia. It pays a lot of homage to the 1978 original. You could say there's moments you feel like you're probably being bashed across the head with it. I'm all for homages, as long as it's not constant, as long as a movie doesn't rely too heavily on homages, like every 2 minutes and whatever. But Halloween 20, again, big selling point, Jamie Lee Curtis back. And I really liked Jamie Lee Curtis in this film, like her iteration. Now, the iteration we get of Jamie Lee Curtis in this film is actually very different from H20. I'm not quite sure which one I prefer. I think I might prefer H20s, I'm not sure. In this one, she's very much, she's essentially agoraphobic, but we do actually see her in a few outdoor scenes, so I'm not sure how that works. But she's known as kind of the town nut. She's holed herself up. She's been planning Maya's death for some time. She wants him to escape, which I really can't buy into. I just can't buy into it. She's been waiting 40 years for him to escape. She's become a survivalist, a gun nut. She's even trained her daughter and that to become a survivalist and etc. She's been waiting a whole moment for this. I get what they were doing, but I just couldn't buy into this. To me, H20s was a more realistic depiction. Turn into alcohol, going into hiding. It's just an idea that I really truly couldn't buy into, but still, it's great to have Jamie Lee Curtis there. Myers is, I think, great in this film. I think Jai Courtney does a great job as Michael Myers. I love the mask. This is the best mask we've had since Halloween 2, hands down. Quickly getting back to H20, I don't like the fact that they changed the masks. It's really noticeable in certain scenes. You'll probably notice that there's more than one mask used in that movie. There's actually even a CG moment in it that looks really bad. It's only a quick moment. It doesn't break the movie, but it's really noticeable. The close-up shots and far shots, Chris Durand is wearing a different Myers mask. And it really is quite jarring at times. I love the mask in Halloween 2018. Courtney really brings kind of a physicality to it. I think that this is probably the best Michael Myers we've actually had since Nick Castle. The movie is, obviously, there's less restraint in this film. There's a higher body count. There's a bit more blood, a bit more gore. I like the fact that there's a level of restraint, though, too. You don't see all of the murders happen in this movie. I think it does quite a good job of capturing the Halloween spirit, the essence in this film, certainly towards the later part of the film. But some of the deaths you don't see happen, it's kind of like you just see the aftermath. There's a particular moment, a highlight for me is the head that's been carved like a jack-o'-lantern, and then seeing the guy pinned to the wall as well, which is a definite nod, a homage to the original Halloween again. I mean, there's little moments that kind of made me cringe at homages. I get what they're going for and stuff, like, when Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode's granddaughter, looks out of the school classroom out the window and she sees Jamie Lee stood there, Laurie. That's obviously a nod to the original scene in Halloween, and of course the moment where Michael Myers, Laurie goes flying out the window, Myers looks over, she's lying on the floor, looks over again, she's gone. That's clearly a nod to the original Halloween. One thing I didn't like in this film, now again, I get it, it was quite bold, it was quite daring for them to do this, I get they were trying to do something a little different and stuff, is the the new Doctor, Dr. Savitar, I think his name is, and yeah, in a twist, if you will, killing the police officer and obviously putting on the mask. And yeah, I was, that's an idea that I really wasn't keen on. I really didn't feel like it needed to be there in that film. It was trying to kind of steer it in a new direction, if you will. But and then his death, his head being crushed like a watermelon, that death felt really out of place for me. It felt like it was more akin to a Friday the 13th film as opposed to a Halloween film. But overall, I liked it. I mean, I had issues. The injection of humour, some of the forced humour, kind of made me cringe. And you know, but it didn't completely ruin the film for me at all. And I thought the final encounter with Myers was actually really good. I actually felt the level of intensity there towards the end of the movie. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Halloween Kills as well, which apparently, John Carpenter has said that he thinks fans are going to love this. That this film is going to be pretty damn hardcore as Halloween films go. So yeah, that brings me to the second spot now, which is Halloween, released in '81. The best sequel, in my opinion, and certainly the most... I think probably the most akin to the original film as well. I mean, this came out just 3 years after the original movie. It originally wasn't going to happen. John Carpenter made Halloween as a standalone film. He didn't want a sequel. It was a standalone film as far as he was concerned. That's it. They're done. But no, he came on board, wrote, produced. And we got Halloween 2, which I actually think is a good sequel that holds up pretty well to the first movie. What it does obviously is the body count's higher. Obviously, there's a bit more in the way of blood because the original film is practically bloodless. Halloween 2, I like the sense of atmosphere. I like the fact that it actually takes place on the very same night, in all honesty. It's kind of a great kind of companion piece to the first film. You can watch the second film straight after the first one. This time, it was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who, as I said, many years later, directed Halloween Resurrection, which is obviously one of the worst in the franchise. But Halloween 2, I like the atmosphere. I like the very claustrophobic setting of the hospital, which has got to be the emptiest hospital in the history of cinema. I've got to say that. Now, I know Haddonfield's a small town, but Jesus. Yeah, the thing is with this movie as well is that Jamie Lee Curtis is top billing, but Dr. Sam Loomis, Donald Pleasance's character, plays a much bigger role than what Laurie Strode's does in this film. Overall, it does have some memorable scenes. One in particular is the nurse being killed in the corridor, being lifted sky high, just showcasing really just how much of a kind of a superhuman, supernatural aspect there is to Michael Myers. Is this man just more than just a man? Because obviously with the original film, it really does heavily imply that this isn't just a normal man. Dr. Sam Loomis is convinced that this man is evil incarnate. So I think with Halloween 2, it does what the first film does, but it basically it kind of takes it up a few gears. In the second film, as I said, a higher body count. It has characters I do think prove to be pretty memorable as slasher movie, 80s slasher movie go. There's one death which is probably my favourite in the movie, actually, not to sound sadistic or anything, but it's when the nurse is actually boiled in the hot water. I mean, that's a really kind of harrowing death. You really kind of feel it in that scene. Dick Warlock, as Michael Myers, it's kind of a shame Nick Castle wasn't back. I thought Nick Castle is the best Myers we've had. There was a really kind of organic kind of feel to him. John Carpenter gave him the mask, and Nick Castle was like, "How do I do this?" And he just said, "Just walk like a man. Just walk normally." What Dick Warlock does is Michael Myers feels somewhat robotic in this movie. He walks really slow. Now, it is actually the original mask as well. I know it looks different, but it went through a lot of wear and tear. And, at that time, they never thought they were going to make a sequel. Deborah Hill hung onto the mask, I believe, and she was a heavy smoker. and it just ended up getting a lot of wear and tear. And I think Nick Castle had actually had it scrunched up in his pockets at points and that as well. And it was just basically, mistreated, not maintained. But it is the very same mask with a kind of more dirtied look in Halloween 2. I love the mask. Dick Warlock, not the best Michael Myers in my opinion, but just a little bit too robotic for my liking. But overall, I think it's the closest, aside from like Halloween 2018, it's the closest we've got to the feel of the original movie. It's very much kind of, it accompanies the original film quite well, I feel. I love the inclusion of the Mr. Sandman theme in which it opens. Every time I hear that song, I always think Halloween 2, which Halloween H20 does it as well. It's a great little opening to Halloween 2 with Mr. Sandman. Halloween 2, I think it's the closest we've got to the original film. Not as good in my opinion, but still one of the better 80s slasher flicks. Without a doubt, in my opinion. So obviously that brings me to number one. I think you obviously all know what this is, Process of Elimination. It's the original. It's the one that started it all. If it wasn't for Halloween, it wasn't for the commercial success at least, a lot of these films, they simply followed in the footsteps of Halloween. Friday the 13th being one of the early ones, Friday the 13th, Prom Night, Terror Train, Hell Night. The list just goes on and on. Halloween, simple concept, very well directed with a lot of finesse, I feel, with John Carpenter. Very little money to spend, but a really well-made film. Not a film that was trying to, reinvent the cinematic wheel. John Carpenter basically just kind of utilised all the techniques he used. He tried to incorporate as many horror as he could into this one movie, and what he made was a great movie, a classic. Great score composed by Carpenter himself. I just love the purity that the original Halloween has. As I said, Michael Myers spends most of the film stalking. There's very much kind of that boogeyman feel to him. 1 minute he's there, the next he's not. It kind of brought horror to suburbia, a place where you should feel safe. And obviously they played on the fact of, babysitters, anyone, a lot of people have been babysitting younger, played on that whole kind of fear of, babysitting, and there's an escaped murderer on the loose. Halloween, it's just a film that was so simple, but just executed so well. The score, the way it was filmed, Carpenter made great use of Panaglide in this film, with these wide spaces, and Myers could actually crop up at any spot, which they actually did quite a good job with that in Halloween 2, actually, as well. Halloween 2 does have its moments where it has them kind of shots. Where's Myers going to kind of come from and that? And you're following Myers, and I love them shots. And there was a scene in Halloween 2018, actually, that I loved. And it's where Myers goes from house to house. He kills 2 people, and the camera just follows him pretty much every step of the way. I love that. And, a great little kind of nod to Halloween 2 where he goes in and he kills that woman in the kitchen. With the original Halloween, it gave us a movie that obviously proved to be really influential. I mean, obviously there's a lot, there were films out there that obviously Halloween borrows from. But what Carpenter did was kind of finesse it. He executed this film so well. I know there's probably some modern audiences out there that look at Halloween and think, oh, it's too slow paced, because it has a low body count. It has a low body, but right from the opening, the opening to this film is just great. Getting the point of view all the way through the house, the hand grabbing the knife, putting on the mask. To me, it's just a perfect opening. Halloween is, hands down my favourite in the franchise, and it's just one of my favourite horror movies of all time. That's I think that's pretty much it. I've talked about Halloween 1978 on various podcasts before. People know my feelings on the movie, so I don't really need to go into it too much again. Halloween, the original, is, for me, it's not going to be topped within this franchise. So yeah, thanks to everyone for listening. I'm going to be back again soon to haunt you, torment you, etc. Just to give people a quick shout out, I do have a friend that's also a fellow podcaster. His name's Matt, and his channel is entertainmenttalk.org, where he does TV, film reviews, and also podcasts on Man United. Also, Dean Mallison, this is a shout out if you're interested in short horror films. He's actually churned out a few now, and he also does stop motion videos. Dean Mallison Films is his channel for short horror movies, and Dean Mallison Stop Motion, I believe it is for his stop motion. I highly recommend you watch them. And for Matt, yeah, if you want to keep up to date on the latest TV news and that out there, find out about Man U and film news, etc., then hop over to Entertainment Talk. So thanks again to everyone that listened, and I'll be back again soon.